welcome to the On to the Next podcast season 3. I am your host, Alyssa, and I am so happy you are here today. It has been a journey, let's just say. Okay, so let's just do a quick rewind. First of all, thank you for being here. It's season 3. If you've been here since season 1, lots of love. You are seen, you are noticed, and I appreciate you. And I appreciate those who've contacted me during this little hiatus that I was on for a few months, just kind of regrouping with life. And I really appreciate those who checked in and who were curious if the pod was coming back. And she's always coming back, so don't you worry. If you are new to this, thank you for being here. There are 2 seasons, I believe 36 episodes worth of life and of things to talk about and of guests that I've had on that you can go and listen to. And we're here, okay? And I have so many things to talk about and so many things to say. I will be having the first few episodes being solo episodes just to kind of get back in the groove of things and to kind of sit down one-on-one with you and kind of just catch up on life and thoughts and growing and learning and all the things. But I do want to say, just a recap. My last episode was in March, put out in March, about 2 days before my birthday. So things, life has happened. I'm officially 25 for 6 months now. The frontal lobe, she's here. She's trying every day. Made life a lot harder when you become aware of things because you can't really escape, you kind of got to focus on what's happening, and you can't really live in denial like I was for years. And we love the growth with that, but also it's very uncomfortable at times, and growing can be uncomfortable and uncertain and scary. And I think that I definitely needed some time to kind of regroup as an individual and process, learn, grow, experience. Lessons were learned, things were done, and we will get into all that throughout this journey. But I will say, I also was still creating, so don't you worry, I didn't fully lose myself during this journey. I was definitely still creating. I was in the music studio, weird flex. That's so disgusting. I was in the stew. But deadass, I was, was recording a song. My family and I have a production company, shout out Dream Team Productions, and we made lots of fun films, including our first ever feature film that was it's an hour and 40-minute long feature film that we filmed all of 24 and all of majority of 25. It took about a year to film. So that was honestly what really kind of took me the last few months of, me pausing a bit on the podcast and kind of regrouping. Was definitely a lot of stuff happening with the film, all positive things, but definitely time consuming, and there's lots of adjustments and changes that come with that. Some fun things with the movie. I acted in it. I have an original song in it that my mom wrote, and, I sang. And I also directed it, which is iconic. I started directing as an individual since I was 10 or 11. And I just made random short films with friends and family on iMovie. And I didn't know I had that little nick in me that I wanted to kind of continue to explore. And then, at 22 or 23, I start my podcast, and I don't realize I'm directing my podcast because it's a one-woman show. So here I am, directing this journey for me the past couple of years. And then I also had someone who is close to me in the industry recognize my skill that isn't family. So that felt better, that it wasn't just my mom being you're so good, direct this. Although she did say that, of course. But I had someone close to me in the industry who I've worked with throughout my journey, who recognized my, my eye or whatever, however they described it, and was like, why don't you direct this film? Because this film was written by my mother, who kind of tells our story of our family in one version of, things that happened in life from my mom's point of view. And I grew up obviously a part of that journey, watching that experience. And long story short, I'll get more into the movie next week because there's lots of things to come with that. But all of this is to say that we made the thing. We had a vision. We are indie producers and indie filmmakers, and we made this movie. And we also had not only made this movie, but we built a community with it, and we have so many memories that we will never forget. We have so much love for the Chicagoland area, and we made lots of connections with people who let us film in their locations. And we also have exciting things that are coming with this movie that I cannot say, very clearly yet, but please just know things are coming. And there was lots of lessons that were learned with this movie, but one of them was that you absolutely can do what you want to do, and that you absolutely never know what can happen out of that experience, and just kind of going for it and creating and not waiting for someone to tell you you're good enough, but just doing it yourself and believing that you are good enough is honestly more than half the battle. And then the rest is just kind of getting the thing done. But that inner belief and that inner trust within yourself and allowing your own creativity to kind of blossom and bloom definitely is something that we all need to remember and remind ourselves, especially when times are hard like they are right now. And I won't get into, just the world in general just being so a lot. I'm not even going to get into that right now because it's a lot, but just remembering to create and to kind of go into those things that make you feel happy and supported, and remembering that it's okay to kind of change your mind and make new decisions and want to try new routes and try new things in general, because you never know when a spark can ignite. So enough with that. I will get more into that next week, like I said, but I did want to touch on the movie stuff a bit because I do think that has been a big part of my journey this past year that I'm excited to share more about with you throughout the upcoming weeks. So thank you for letting me say my little part on that. But I did also want to add, just in general, I think I learned a lot of grace and kind of I saw the beauty in pausing. I think with this podcast, I was nonstop for weeks for 2 years in a row. As you know, like episodes were out weekly, and it is a lot on somebody. And I think that I knew I wanted more with this podcast, and I wasn't fully able to give my all to it the past few months, which is why I've kind of paused with it. But I have learned within that journey is that it is okay to take breaks, and there is such a beauty in giving yourself grace and allowing yourself to kind of regroup before you just keep going at stuff. Because I think often, for at least myself or people who have lots of things going on all at once, I think that often we just continue to like go, and then sometimes the quality of what you're putting out there might not be as best as it could be, or sometimes you kind of lose yourself in the journey, you forget your why. And I think that that's a very common thing people can experience, but they don't always want to acknowledge or admit to themselves. And I know for me, like me feeling like I wasn't able to like give my 1000% to this podcast has definitely made me want to pause and regroup. And I also got like new equipment to like slay, like, I was building still, and I'm also still not done. This is not going to be the forever look of the podcast either. If you're watching on YouTube, hello, thank you for being here. But like there's lots of things that are gonna come from this, just from the beginning, but I do believe in starting once you feel more ready for it. So I am glad that I'm here and that I'm making that first little jump to get things going. So I think a lot that has been occurring the past few months for me, and I've talked about this before, it's the same old song to some degree, but also it's not, because it's also always like evolving, is just healing your inner child. So I've discussed this in past seasons, but I think this year the most has been very eye-opening for me as I am getting older, as I am having, a lot more truth with what I've seen growing up, my family dynamics and my friends, and how all those things really do shape a person. And I think within myself, because I have felt a bit lost the past year, or a bit confused or unsure of my journey or what I want to do next, I think that I have learned how important it is. Like if I'm not feeding into my inner child and she's not being acknowledged in my journey, then I'm never going to be my best self. And something I've learned, and I've talked about this since graduating college actually, like I love talking and I love people, so why don't I start a podcast? Like I do these random things or these little side quests as all parts of like versions of little Alyssa who had this in her, and maybe it wasn't acknowledged or noticed right away, or maybe I didn't notice it in myself but others around me did. But it's like beautiful to be at a certain age and to be able to look back and be like, oh my god, like 13-year-old Alyssa who would pretend that she was on a talk show with her friends and play and make them interview her or interview her friends. Like, this is like a version of what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like, I was essentially on a podcast before podcasts were cool, before I knew what that meant. And I think that me doing these little things, I don't realize like how much it's healing a version of myself. And another example is how much I always go back to music. Music was the first thing I was introduced to as a child, within dance, and then also within music, of course, like just music itself. But since a baby, I was in piano, singing, voice. I have photos of me, on a stage since 3 years old with a mic, looking like a Britney Spears moment mic, like singing along or singing in choirs or whatever it was. And I feel like when I went to high school or college or had different social pressures or different ideations of who I'm supposed to be, when that all comes up, it's easy to lose yourself. And anytime I'm losing myself, or I'm angry, or I'm angsty, or I'm mad at myself, or I'm unsure, or I'm confused, it's always because I'm not feeding baby Alyssa. And I still, to this day, as of today, I am still doing things that I know I'm just starting up again for the first time in 10 years because baby Alyssa wanted to do it. And I wasn't able to do it to the fullest that I am able to now. Or I didn't have the resources or the knowledge that I do now to be able to do those things. And I think this is so important, especially as we get older, no matter whether you're 15, 16, 25, 35, 45, 50, 60, at any age, you can always go back to yourself and you can always go back to within and to what heals you. Because to me, if I'm not healing myself, I'm not going to be my best version as a friend, as a sister, as a daughter, whatever that looks like, as a colleague, whatever it is. I'm not going to be my best self because I'm going to show up angsty, I'm going to be triggered. And you all know it's easy to stay in that space, at least for me. It's easy to stay triggered. It's easy to stay angsty. And it's if I'm not fueling myself and fueling my passions and my creativity, because that's what I needed as a kid, and that's what I also was able to have as a kid, then I'm never going to feel fulfilled. And I see a lot of people who are older than I am, and they are just miserable, and they're just living the 9 to 5, and they're just going from A to B, and they're done with their day, and they're forgetting, you have, what do you do after the 9 to 5? Of course you're exhausted. Of course you might have a family or other responsibilities, but you can make an hour a day to read a book or to journal or to go to the gym or to go paint or do whatever you want to do that's fun for you. And I just think that as we are getting older, there is an arrogance of thinking you have time. Oh, no worries, I'll do that next year. Okay, I love that, but sadly, not to be creepy or morbid, what if we don't have it next year? I'm not saying that is a good way to live, in fear, but I'm saying you never know where you'll be in a year. You can be better than ever, or you can be struggling, or you can be kind of in the middle, or kind of, floating by, and that's okay. But I think that if you have those things within you, just go for it while you can, or try to do what you can. If you can't afford a painting class, go on YouTube and look up some artists for different styles that you want to copy and just follow that along at home. There's always ways to modify your dreams if you can't get it to the extreme right now. So all of this yip-yapping for me is to say, now is the time to do it and to kind of see what you need for yourself. I had therapy today, so I'm even more in my head thinking, processing, learning. And I told her, I was like, oh my God, there's this one thing that's always been calling me, and I can't escape it. And it's a form of creativity that I haven't really expanded to the best of my ability yet. And I just know once I do, I might soar and I might feel free and I might finally feel at peace. But there are roadblocks that are getting in the way, but those roadblocks are mostly myself. And I think that the fact that I'm acknowledging that I have something within me that has been brewing for so long that I have not unleashed yet is a sign that I need to, because I refuse to be 40 years old with a family and feel like I didn't get to live to my fullest because I was scared, or because I didn't want to, or because I made an excuse, because I think that is what eats people alive. They always say the things that you regret are usually the things that you do not do in life. And the concept of not doing something or missing out on a chance is terrifying to me. And I don't think that's worth it, especially as you become more aware of what those things are. Because every day, if you're going to work, like, damn it, I just wanted to be a painter, and you're still going to work and you're not painting when you get home, like, why are you carrying that? Just paint. Just start doing it now. And I'm using painting as a very easy example, but whatever that looks like for you, I think there's always ways to reinvent yourself. And I've really, really have been enjoying that journey and truly have felt more within myself and more alive, because I am allowing myself to cater to that baby girl Alyssa, or that 15-year-old Alyssa, or even that 22, 23-year-old Alyssa. That wasn't too long ago, but she was thriving. And what was she doing that she wanted to do more of? And what are ways to incorporate those everyday things in your life that you can do now and that you can start now? And I just think that's all very important to reflect on. And I would absolutely suggest to start just thinking within yourself, what was the thing you always wanted to do, and how can you get there? How can you do even a baby step of it each day to make it eventually a part of your day-to-day life and living? And I hope that, gives you something to think about, and I hope that takes you somewhere. Okay, now let's get a little angsty, because I can't not get angsty, okay? I want to discuss a topic that I will never not be able to get over until something changes in this world. But as of right now, I just want to discuss the concept of female rage. Now, this has become like a thing I've been seeing more in pop culture, in media, in film, in television, and I am living for female rage. And I don't mean, this is where it gets hard, because I don't mean like hurt somebody. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. I don't, okay, like, don't hurt anybody, but also like do what you gotta do. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, I don't know how to say it without sounding like suspicious. I am just so for being angry and feeling your emotions unapologetically, because I do not think women get the chance to do that. And I will say, I even talk about this with my mother, because she always said since I was a child, I would not take stuff from certain people, and these people were typically boys or men. And I have a memory of someone even in second grade who was a boy that he just triggered me. He was always the loud one, he always wanted attention, and he was mean and just all these things. And I remember being the only girl in the class who wouldn't give him time of day, so he had a crush on me. And I remember being like 9, like, Mom, like, he has a crush on me, he won't leave me alone. And I was so angry. And I thank the Lord that my mom, she didn't, it's confusing, because she didn't tell me like I was wrong for being annoyed by him and for him not respecting my boundaries. Like, the teacher literally had to move his seat because he wouldn't leave me alone. Like, that's how much he was like up my ass. And that's how much, since I was a kid, look at me, this was like 20 years ago and I'm still triggered. I just hated the fact that these people and these supposedly men do not get held accountable and do not take no for an answer. It's actually sickening. And so I am here living my life trying to be, and I remember 9-year-old Alyssa who was told, like, okay, like, be nice, but like, you don't have to be his friend, which is great, but I still don't like the concept that I had to be nice to him when I didn't owe him anything. If he's not respecting my boundaries, I don't want to be nice to you. Like, just get out of my face. Like, leave me alone. And I think as we get older and we get conditioned to just be nice, it's pretty, smile, be okay, we so easily as women get conditioned to allow this negative energy. And here's the thing. I understand that there's a lot of conflict within women on women conflict or beef, but I wholeheartedly believe it is because the way society was built, where men were in charge and men kind of pitted women against each other, that's where I think that stuff usually stems in. So right now, this female rage, I'm not talking about raging on other women, because I personally don't believe in that. Even if a woman does you dirty, or a friend or a female in your life is like horrible or nasty, that's unfortunate and that's sickening and always sad and really disappointing to have another woman do that to you. But right now I'm talking about the world we live in, where women are not allowed to speak up or to talk back without being painted as this like nasty, evil woman. And I think that to me is what triggers me, especially as we get older and we have to unlearn patterns that we were taught as children, or that our parents were taught as children, or that our grandmas were taught as children. I think it's really easy to fall in that trap. And I think people, including even myself, would rather be named like, oh, like she's just sweet, like let her be, like whatever, than be told like, oh, she's mean, or she's nasty, or she yelled at me, or she held him accountable. Like, I'm all for a woman yelling back at a man. Like, yeah, if he's yelling at you, if he's making you uncomfortable, you can fight back. You don't have to sit there and be pretty. I definitely think you have to be safe, because I definitely know it's very scary, unfortunately. Sadly, you know, it is a thing where some women sometimes are not in the safest situations, where they cannot safely, you know, fight back. But if you can safely fight back, like literally fight back, or honestly, a part of female rage is just walking away and just leaving it at that, because there are so many times where I feel like women are scared to walk away because they're scared to hurt somebody's feelings. And I don't think that's fair, because then they stay. And nothing triggers me more than when I see a couple in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and not even see, when I hear of these stories, and I've seen it firsthand within my family dynamics, like they have these, you know, really aggressive or loud, or in my versions, like nasty masculine men who don't know how to treat other people with kindness and respect and patience, and they end up verbally abusing or in other forms of, you know, abusing people around them, and these women who are married to them still stay because they think they have to. And yes, I know it's so easy said than done, and I also understand circumstance. Sometimes you financially can't leave, or you safely can't leave. Like, I understand that, and I do beg you to seek help, or to believe in resources are out there to help you get out. But I'm also praying that the Gen Zs and the millennials are not staying with the same man who have been essentially abusing them in different ways since they were like 16. Like, I have so many friends who have had the shittiest men treat them like shit, and they're like 20. I'm like, y'all, we are too young to already be disrespected by men, like, at this young age, because then that's going to shape us to thinking that it's okay if we don't walk away, if we don't realize that that's not okay. And I think that women are often painted as the villain for walking away or for speaking up. And I understand that feeling is not fun. You don't want to be the bad person. You know, that's never a fun thing. Oh, like I'm the problem, or I was the mean one. Like, that's never exciting or fun. But I swear, it's also not fun staying with the same asshole who's been treating you like shit for 10 years. That's not fun. And I do have, clearly I'm here angsty. Everyone's like, what is she talking about? I do have angst, because I've seen it firsthand. It's very, you know, in older generations, it's sadly a thing where you stay with the first person that you ever looked at, and that's who you marry, and however they treat you is how they treat you, and that's just how they are. Boys will be boys, and they carry on. And I'm sick of men not being held accountable. We already live in a terrifying world right now where nasty men are in charge of this country. I do not need in your day-to-day lives for you to be treated like shit by a shitty boy who probably doesn't even know how to fucking use a microwave, or like how to, you know, open a fridge. Like, because they're, okay, now I'm just being, I'm about to call them idiots, but like, I'm just so like over the concept of, I think what triggered me, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I saw a movie yesterday. It was a Bruce Springsteen movie, Lots of Love, but Bruce, you know, the whole journey is his inner child and him trying to experience inner child healing in his songwriting, which we love, we're here for. But you see flashbacks, without, you know, exposing too much or kind of giving any spoilers, you see flashbacks of him living in his home as a, you know, an only child with his drunk father, who essentially in different forms abuses his mother and also him. And then it cuts to them like 50, no, maybe like 30, 20, let's say 20 years later, and the mom is still with this dad. And I know that is so common. It's so common for these women to stay with these men who treat them like shit essentially because they don't know that they deserve better, and they don't know that they can seek more. Do you know how many friends, even at 24, 25, think they can't leave their gross boyfriend because they don't think they'll find better? And why do they think that? Because their boyfriend is telling them that they can't find better. And I'm sick of that. Change the narrative. You can find better. You do not need to be with the same shitty person. It is 2025. You can explore. You can move on. You can also be single for the rest of your life if you want to. If that's what feels fulfilling for you. There are ways to go about this. You do not need to stay with the same person that you started with. And I mean that with love. I do believe that people go through ruts. There are hard times. You give grace. You learn and you grow, and you can learn and grow together, and that's a beautiful thing. But if there is not growth on both ends, if there is not positive change, if you don't feel safe, you do not need to stay. I'm giving you permission to release that space, that energy, if you're able to. And I'm also giving you permission to speak up about it. Do you know how many times, anytime I spoke about a boyfriend or about a past relationship or about some sort of abuse that I experienced, mostly, manipulation, mental, verbal abuse that I experienced, and all my friends are like, oh my God, me too. And I'm like, well, I didn't know. Why didn't you tell me you had this experience? I'm thinking I'm crazy for going through this, or for allowing this, for it to go on. And here you are saying you're still living it with your person. That's not fair, because now, okay, sorry, it is fair, like, do what you gotta do, and I understand people have shame with this, but what I'm saying is, like, I'm living my life in this shame or this confusion, like, why is this happening? How do I leave it? But if we as women, or we as humans, speak about this and become communities and kind of share, you want to call it gossiping? I call it literally like raising awareness. We are raising awareness, and we are talking about ways to stay safe and ways to leave and lean on your friends and your community. I remember when I had told my friends after the fact that I was in a space with someone who made me feel unsafe, they were like, Alyssa, you could have called me. I don't care where I was in the world. I would have come and get you. And I didn't know to the extent, I don't know why, maybe I just didn't, I don't know. I think I was just in my own space, my own mental space of like, oh my God, like, can I? Like, I can figure it out. I'm strong. I can do it on my own. And there's times when you can, and there's times when you definitely can ask for help. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so I think that in society, we need to start changing the narrative, allowing women to speak up, allowing a woman to scream or to have a mental breakdown or to yell at you or to hold you accountable, because you deserve it. And you need to also learn to grow as well. And if you can't handle this, and you meaning, now I'm talking to men now. If you cannot handle being held accountable, then you need to regroup and stay away and don't bother the girlies. Please and thank you. Okay. Okay. There's so much to talk about, and I actually have saved some questions I've had from you all throughout this journey that I cannot wait to touch on more. So please, there's a link in my bio. Keep asking those questions. Keep bringing that stuff up, and I want to hear your thoughts and questions. But I have a new segment to announce, and I'm a little excited because this is a segment very close to me, very dear to baby girl Liz. I have a segment called Her Story. Oh, wait. Her Story. You might have think I'm saying it wrong. I'm not. Her story, her story. I love, more than anything, history, okay? I don't really like calling it history because I don't think that's fair. I think history was written by a bunch of white men who controlled the way we perceive and think things, and I love nothing more than the freedom and the privilege to be able to reread history as an adult woman, and acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of history not being told or that was left out because women weren't writing it. And not only women, but people of color weren't writing it. They weren't a part of it. They were put on the outskirts. And sadly, we see this happening again in history, essentially, because it's happening present day. They're trying to kick out the women and people of color. And I'm not here for that. So I'm here to bring some light to some iconic people in history, and I will cover only women. Sorry, not sorry. It is time for her story to be told, okay? Okay. Now, this first person I'm going to do, because I need you to know, like, my free time is looking up iconic women throughout every point of history, every culture, different, like, everywhere. Like, you don't even want to know where the rabbit holes go. What I do in my free time, it's not scrolling on Instagram. It's reading books and memoirs of random women in history that were never talked about, or that weren't acknowledged enough, or that were just known as the wife of Alexander Hamilton, or just known as the sister, or the maid, or the whore, or whatever they called these women. Like, no, we're going to unpack this, and we're going to tell history from a woman's POV as it's deserved and as it should been from the beginning of time. And this is also to show young listeners and young viewers that, and present day, anyone, history is still being made, and we need to flip the switch because I'm sick of living in a man's world. Okay. So, this person I'm going to discuss, technically, I guess you could say she's not a person. I don't know. She's mythical. I don't know. You tell me what you think of her. I think of her as an icon. I'm gonna make her a thing. I personally think believe what you want, but she's a part of Greek mythology. Okay, I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's going to be for the next few minutes. And I'm going to talk about someone because I think this person embodies female rage, near and dear to my heart. She also embodies so many different forms of feminist acts and movements, and she's actually a symbol for a lot of women and survivors. And I know this episode was kind of heavy, talking about some crazy things, real life things, so I do want to give I want to give a little disclaimer to the topics being talked about today. Different forms of abuse will be discussed, but I will be vague on that aspect of it. But I will make it, it's part of the story, so you need to talk about it. But I do want to talk about my girl, Medusa. Okay. And I don't mean the club in the 90s that my mom tells me about, Medusa. No, I mean baby girl Medusa, mostly known as the woman who stoned men. Okay, talk about an icon, talk about a role model, right? So let's get this going. Medusa, my girl. If you know me, you would know I was her 2 years ago for Halloween. Lots of love. And I want to just say, when I was Medusa for Halloween, do you know how many men slid up and was like, oh my god, like, you're making Medusa hot? Excuse me? What a way to just ruin a good fucking moment for a woman. Like, let me just be Medusa. Why do you have to make it like I'm making her hot? Also, rude. She is hot, okay? Medusa was a Greek mythology human or person, whatever you want to call her. She was one of the priestesses of Athena. Athena is the Greek god. And she's another icon, but we'll get into her story because they are kind of intertwined. So here's the thing. If you are a priestess to a god, that's kind of like, I would say it's kind of like a modern day, like, nun, I guess, because you swear yourself to the religion, to the god. That also means she swore to live a life of celibacy. Okay, great. But here's the thing. Medusa was this gorgeous woman who men just couldn't keep their paws off. And they just loved her, and of course they sexualized her, because a girl can't just be a pretty girl without being sexualized by men. So, since the beginning of time, before even whatever you believe in, like Greek mythology times, Medusa's trying to live her life, going to work every day, working for homegirl Athena, and of course, what happens? A man can't control himself. And who is this man? Poseidon, another Greek god. So he takes his power and he sexually assaults Medusa, which is heartbreaking and sickening and disgusting. And I think we see this so often in life. Men just can't get a fucking grip. Okay. So he assaults Medusa, and then Athena finds out. And Athena finds out that Medusa is no longer a virgin. And the way the story goes, Athena takes Poseidon's side and then punishes Medusa. Quick human, let's do a quick parallel to the real world. This happens every day, and it is sickening and saddening. Someone gets assaulted and they somehow become the bad guy. They become the one who was the problem. For example, a woman will get assaulted in some way, and then they, meaning the world or a man, will paint her as it was her fault. Oh, well, why were you wearing that? Or, oh, why were you walking out late at night? Or, oh, you must have like gave him a clue. Like, you must have wanted him because you looked at him a certain way, or you wore that shirt a little too low, whatever. And women, and I'm saying women, I know assaults happen to any person, but I'm saying for the sake of this story, to keeping it parallel, but all survivors of assault, it's very common to feel some sort of blame, because that's what, the world puts onto you. So when we have big people in power like Poseidon, a Greek god, doing this to someone who is seen as a little bit lower level, it's natural for the power dynamics to be very skewed, which we know and we see every day, sadly, in this world, and Hollywood and politics and all these different spaces. We see these power dynamics in your basic workplace. We see that messiness of power dynamics not being fair, and then someone who wants to speak up is nervous to speak up because they think, oh my God, I'm going to be blamed. And in this case, sadly, Medusa gets blamed. And Athena takes a man's side, okay? Sickening, saddening. So Athena takes a man's side and she punishes Medusa, because that means in her eyes, Medusa lost her virginity in her house, the house of Athena. And that means she can no longer work for her. Her vows of being one of her her main workers, like, it's gone because she's not a virgin anymore. So Athena punishes Medusa, and Medusa now becomes a Gorgon, which is essentially, the word Gorgon means like a corpse. So they kind of make her look like this nasty corpse, and then she has the punishment of the snakes all around her. And then they also banish her to this little island where it's only her, because now she has to live in a life of isolation, because this punishment, naturally, people don't want to be around her, because if you look in her eyes, they become stone. So lots of, real life parallels to this. Oftentimes when someone is a survivor of something traumatic, there are very common times where they feel isolated, or where we feel like we're not good enough, or we feel shame. And in this version of, the story of Medusa, we do see her being isolated and being blamed. And then while this is all happening, Poseidon is still living his best life, being a god, dilly-dallying, more than likely assaulting other women because he doesn't get held accountable. And we live in this kind of concept of these men never losing their power, because they are always somehow, just boys will be boys. He's a big dog. Don't bother him. He's got busy things to do. Was never his fault. So very sad, very heartbreaking. And then to add to this, Medusa is now also low-key being hunted by all the warriors in the towns, because the new talk of the town is, if you essentially kill Medusa, you can still keep her head and use that as a weapon. So whoever kills Medusa is seen to be, in these stories, the most powerful man or warrior alive, because they can now use her as some form of, she essentially becomes the most powerful weapon. Why can't these men just leave her alone? Like, she's getting killed, like, just let her be. They still want to use her even after she dies for their own benefit. Like, can these men just find a hobby that doesn't involve bothering other women? Especially, like, it's just ridiculous. So basically, this is the thing. It's the same old story we see in present day. Why was this happening in, like, literally before? I don't even know what year that would be considered. Like, I don't even know what that is. I probably should have took it in. But what I'm trying to say is, like, the fact that this is a common thing that we see in history, and then we paint this Medusa. If you think of Medusa, people think of her as this nasty girl. She was evil. She wanted to stone men, like, all this stuff. But it's like, do you even know her story? Do you even know what happened? And it's just so sad that we are so quick as a society to blame the survivor or the victim in a situation, instead of looking around. Who could have prevented this? Who could have stopped this? Who could have held the person accountable, like Poseidon accountable? Many people, And there is a theory, and I'm going to say this to be positive, because I do really appreciate this theory, and it honestly makes me feel better, because I did love Athena as a kid, and knowing that she did this to Medusa makes me sad. But there's a theory, a feminist interpretation, that Athena actually protects Medusa in the only way she knows how. Because let's think about this. Athena is a god, but she's a god still living in a man's world, She's still in like a boys' club of sorts because she has all these other gods around her who are big and scary, and essentially, these men clearly don't get punished. So Athena's only safest way to, I guess, save or protect Medusa is to give her this, what I would call a power, to be able to kind of stray away from these bad energies. Because any man who wanted something from Medusa obviously didn't want well, like they did not mean well. So there was a theory that the best thing Athena could do after what happened to Medusa was essentially protect her by giving her the power of, snaking these men. And I think, that idea kind of is obviously very sad, but it's a much better idea and a much better concept than thinking Athena just blamed Medusa and was done, like, rawr, like, you suck, and blaming the woman. So I do appreciate that concept a lot. And I think, I want to start telling these stories more because I think it's so important to highlight things that have happened, whether it is in history, in storybooks, in different forms of storytelling in general. Like, these things that have happened are still happening today and just in different forms. And I think it's very, very easy to, again, stick with the norm, stick with what you know, stick with what you read when you were a kid, what you were told by your parents, instead of actually doing the research on your own and realizing that there's always more to the story. Especially if there's ever a story involving some sort of dynamic or power dynamic or female and male dynamic of sorts, and they're trying to blame the woman. Please, I urge you to always look into it more. Since the beginning of time, women were blamed. Homegirl Eve wanted to be healthy, wanted to eat an apple, okay? And she gets blamed, and now she's known as a temptress and seduction and all these things in the Bible. Like, let's regroup, let's look into this more, and let's not just blame women. How's that for a thought, for a concept? So I am going to be talking about some other, real life people that maybe we've lived in their time, or maybe we've learned more about them in history. I can't wait to touch, Marilyn Monroe and Jackie Kennedy and all these other iconic women who have done things in our communities and in our world and in our country who do not get acknowledged enough. And I think there's lots of beauty in kind of seeing what happens and learning about her story from the woman's POV. It's also probably a lot more juicier, let's be real. I want the deets, I want the tea from these women, and I am so excited to learn more about them and to talk about them and to also compare similar life parallels that we see in present day. So that's that for now. I always have more to say, but I will leave it at there. I am very excited for what's to come. I have lots of things coming, and I have lots of things that I just can't wait to kind of explore with you and talk to you about and dissect more. But I urge you to continue to take care of yourself. Write those things for your inner child. Write a letter to your inner child. What do you want for this person, for your baby self? Like, what do you want for them? And what are ways that we can always just feed our soul in different ways? And what are ways that we can always look at more than just a surface level? What is actually happening on the bigger scale? And how are ways that we are able to kind of reshape our thinking, especially when it comes to, what's going on in the world and what's going on within ourselves. I think that's super important, and I just am here to say that we will get through this. This is only the beginning. Please continue to take care of yourself, and thank you for being here. It means so much to me, and we are only just beginning. So if you enjoyed today, if you want more, please like, comment, subscribe, post, repost, share, tell the girls, tell the boys, tell the moms, tell everyone in your circle about the On to the Next podcast. And we have so much more coming, and I thank you for being here. It's been a journey, to say the least, and we are only just beginning.